Hello and welcome to LPL Showdown. This week begins Snake's Gauntlet as they play in 3 series instead of 2 this week. And these aren't trifling opponents either. Today, Snake must face OMG, tomorrow LGD, and Invictus Gaming on Sunday. To add to the headache, Baka, Snake's mid laner, has suffered an elbow fracture earlier this week filming the LPL promotional show, League of Legends Fighting! That was bad. I'm never doing that again. And now has to tussle with the steepest mid lane competition LPL has to offer. Raz, DreXxiN and I will break down Snake's trials tonight, as well as the other highlight matches in LPL Showdown. OMG vs Snake is the highlight match of the week, and it also opens up tonight's games. A lot of this match's intrigue comes from the fact that both OMG and Snake are known for aggressive early game styles, and a focus on top lane monsters Flandra and Go-Going. Flandra has more of a split pushing background, but Go-Going has kind of taken his lane dominance and spread it across the map with teleports and teamfighting later on, jungle invades alongside leveling, etc. Regardless, both teams have kind of had a reputation for having their success hinge on the dominance that their top laners can provide, and so the junglers have focused a lot of attention there. Beast is new to LPL, but he's already a contender for top jungle, and I don't say that lightly at all. I know Cacao and Dandy are in this league, but he's got a lot to prove, and one of his issues is that he might have some of the same trigger-happy leanings as Starhorn Royal Club's import Insec, with a tendency to engage quickly and without some of the regrets or second thoughts that a lot of the other junglers take into account. Leveling, on the other hand, has displayed a great deal of inconsistency, and we know, though, that when he hits his highs, it's really ridiculous. Our highlight matchup, though, is definitely going to be in the mid lane. Baka, gritting his teeth through the pain, will have to contend with Cool, 2-time LPL MVP. Cool adapts well to the needs of his team and is known for his roaming. He's best associated with assassins, but he's played a variety of champions, and has so far this split managed a KDA of 11.6. Baka in the past has shown a limited champion pool, being unable to carry off picks like LeBlanc, and he's played Xerath in 5 of his 8 games so far. OMG has been target banning a lot more than other teams, so it might be curious to see how Baka handles both the loss of his best champion and the loss of the full functionality of his elbow. Bottom lane might also be really interesting, though, because Crystal has been gaining a lot of attention, right? Still, I've noticed that he can't always find the best position to do damage in a fight, and UZI kind of has no fear. He just goes in and he rolls around in the terrain. But, you know, that could very well zone Crystal out completely. It will also test Law, OMG support, as Ella, Snake support, has shown a great deal of strength and vision control, and Law might not be able to keep up with that. OMG has been lane swapping quite a bit overall also to add some complexity here, so it's possible that they might use this strategy to shut down Flandra. This was actually a really common strategy that teams used against Snake and LSPL to varying degrees of success. Overall, OMG needs to come more prepared than they have been to contend with the Snake team. If they can show off a tailored plan, it will set them in good stead to face other top teams later in the split, and we might go from saying, oh, they're just an all-star team, to a team that actually knows what they're doing.
King vs Starhorn Royal Club has an interesting story behind it. Just before Worlds, there was a bit of drama, you may remember, surrounding Starhorn Royal Club's morale, and even UZI stating on social media that he wouldn't be joining the event. This internal strife was mostly because Starhorn was performing poorly at the time, especially in Season 1 of X Championship, which is a third-party tournament, which saw Team King 2-0ing them in the semifinals. 2-0ing them! They were an LSPL team that just qualified for the LPL, and they had a lot to prove, but, well, it looked, as you can tell, it looked really bad for them. Fast forward, and now Starhorn Royal Club is a Season 4 Worlds finalist. But they're still not looking too hot. They lost UZI, but without him, they're doing just fine, I guess. They're in a bit of limbo until they can tap into the strength of Name. Until then, they've been using HYY. He's been doing just fine for the team. He's found himself an MVP for his troubles, I guess. So, to get into this game, it's a bit clear that King has had a lot of troubles in the picks and bans. They've often put themselves in awkward counters, getting outpicked to the point which there's some questions now on Sky's proficiency or like if he's comfortable on Gnar. This is an important detail, especially against Starhorn, as Cola has found the bulk of his success this season off the back of some incredible Gnar play. So if they allow Cola to get his Gnar pick, then it'll be difficult. Hell, if they make the same foolish mistake of first picking his ear, then they will get punished. Korn is a proficient Kassadin player, and if they were to even ban it out, like, he still has Lissandra, and I wouldn't doubt that he would pick Lissandra or even Fizz into it. So Cola, for me, is the highlight player for this set, if he gets his pick, or if he's just given the resources to do his thing, like, he'll provide just enough pressure for his team to wrestle map control away from King. For King, it's on Assassin to keep Korn down. Korn is probably one of the most underrated mid laners in the LPL, but he gets a bit outshined in his team. If Korn gets ahead, he'll find a way to convert his lead, and it will make the game a lot more difficult for King. So if Assassin can keep him down, attract a lot more attention out of Insec, that frees up his side lanes. And for King, that means a lot, because Sky will win his 1v1, and Wushin and Lei will probably outplay HYY and Zero. I see this game being a 1-1 tie, but if King can get the picks and bans straight, 2-0 for me.
Thanks, Raz. Team WE versus LGD is the third matchup of the night, and this might seem one-sided if you look at the scores and if you've been watching it all and know how these teams have been doing. But WE managed to put OMG on the back foot in the early game last week with a team fighting composition. Spirit has shied away from Jarvan, which was something that gave them a lot of success against Edward Gaming in Demacia Cup. They surprised a lot of people by taking Edward Gaming, this really, really dominant team, to 5 games in that series. And he's been playing a lot of Rivens and Rengars, and it really hasn't worked out for WE. I think it's partly because Spirit's more natural style is this supportive jungle who sets up for team fights later. And so he's gone back to the Jarvan versus OMG, and that actually gave them a lot of success. They caught people out in the brush near the Dragon Pit, and OMG had to come back from behind. It was pretty shocking. So this is something that they might be able to pull out, and Spirit can draw on that synergy with STYZ to carry the team forward. The jungle is where WE will probably find their easiest advantage in general, with Chuen falling behind in the past because of Wayless's penchant for stealing his farm, and also just because he's overall had a lack of effectiveness through optimizing his jungle pathing or ganking or whatever. If Spirit wants to run away with this game and go back to the carry style, he might actually find some success in this case. But he could also easily prop up his own lanes behind Chuen's back and give them a lot of help. For LGD, all eyes will be on PYL, with Chuen kind of being a really questionable or inconsistent factor, depending on whether or not, in part, whether or not he gets Lee Sin. PYL will have to help out his lanes and guard them against Spirit's heavy ganking style if he does gank a lot. I'm assuming that he'll gank a lot because he can kind of get away with it here. But if PYL can effectively help them guard against this, then LGD should have no trouble running away with this game. If they might struggle a little bit in the early game because that's what they've done in the past, but WE has yet to find a win in all of LPL so far. So if LGD loses, it's going to be a really, really big upset.
EDG versus IG, I feel, is one of those sets where you'll get to learn why you can't really just base teams' performances off results. Both of these teams are tied in the standings, but they're pretty far apart in terms of skill if you've seen them play anytime recently. Now, Edward Gaming may have dropped a couple games last week, so, you know, yeah, it'll be natural to say this matchup will be closer than it might actually be, but the thing is that Edward Gaming is adaptable, and I don't expect them to make the same mistakes twice. Now, Edward Gaming, they arguably have wins against better teams because they have wins against LGD, they have a win against King, and they have a win against Vici. Now, Invictus Gaming, sure, they're 3-0-1, just like Edward Gaming, but their wins come against GAMT, Energy Pacemaker, World Elite. So their wins are against bottom standing teams, and they still dropped games to Vici. So yeah, it's probably going to show that equal score does not suggest equal skill. Now, the thing I wonder is if they're going to go with the Pokemon Rookie start, or if they're going to go with the Save and Z-Tai start. Because I feel like they're going to have to be forced to go Save. Now, Save didn't perform all that well in his match last week, but Koro has gotten a lot stronger in terms of how he carries his weight in the top lane. So I'm thinking they're going to have to force that hand. Then again, Pokemon has done a good job at least at being able to survive and being that backbone for the team. So they could just suffice with him losing lane and then just go from there. Now, mid lane can either be Rookie against Pawn, or it can be Z-Tai against Pawn. Pawn hasn't looked the most stellar, but he's still a solid mid laner. I do feel like he'd be outclassed by Rookie, but not by Z-Tai. So we have to see. I feel like IG has to take a hit somewhere, which is one of the flaws I feel they have with their roster. Not that Z-Tai is bad by any means. Like, if anything, Pokemon is like the quote-unquote weak link of the team. But just Z-Tai, the patch has been out for a little bit. He's kind of lost his little niche we've talked about before on things like China Talk, where if a new champion comes out, he's really, really good at it. He has a lot of natural talent, but as time goes on, he kind of falters in terms of his skill cap. So essentially, he just plateaus really hard. So yeah, that should be somewhat interesting. But other than that, I do think EDG is highly likely to win this set. There's nothing that suggests that they won't, especially in historically. Now, I also am not. Despite people probably disagreeing with me here that watch both regions, I'm not totally sold on EDG's bottom lane beating IG's bottom lane. I actually think IG, I think people recognize they're good, but I think people still, to an extent, highly undervalue IG's bottom lane. I feel like they're the most underrated bottom lane in China. Kid and Kitties are really world-class AD carry and support. So it'll be fun to see how they do against EDG's bottom lane of Deft and Mouse. So now, I will say that EDG will probably pull out better than the Vision department as well. IG had one game, I think, in the first week where it looked like their vision was pretty solid, and then it slipped again. So I expect Invictus Gaming to be blinded and just kind of die randomly late in the game, kind of homage to their old jungler Illusion. So yeah, that's probably what it'll come down to. I won't say this will be a clean 2-0, but I will say that it's highly likely that EDG will be favored, but it is possible for this to be a 1-1. Especially since EDG is likely to experiment in the regular season as opposed to the playoffs. So that's always something to look out for.